The Phoenix Canal. In the early 90s, the body of a young lady was found dumped in the Arizona Canal running through Phoenix. 10 months later, another victim was dumped in the same place. The cases went cold until 2015, when the police got a new lead courtesy of forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick cross-referenced the suspect's DNA provided by police against DNA databases already established and available to the public. According to her, there are thousands of these databases, some of them organized by companies or professionals, but most by genealogy enthusiasts who post their DNA profiles in the hopes of finding distant relatives. Since the killer was most likely a man, Fitzpatrick searched only along the Y DNA line for possible matches. Within a few weeks, the forensic genealogist tracked down a likely surname, Miller. Police looked through their list of suspects and identified Brian Patrick Miller. They compared his DNA to that of the suspect and got a match. Miller was apprehended in 2016 and is awaiting trial. Lake City, Florida. 23 years ago, the dismembered body of a young man was discovered behind a gas station in Lake City, Florida. Several items related to the murder were also present at the scene, including a blood-soaked flannel shirt, a mattress cover, bathtub safety pads, and bloody knives that were most likely the murder weapons. Despite having DNA from the killer and the victim, both remained unidentified for decades. This, however, changed in 2015 when modern tests and an updated DNA database finally identified the victim as 16-year-old Fred Laster. His family confirmed that Laster disappeared in 1994, shortly before the discovery of his mutilated body. Once police knew the identity of the victim, they established a short list of suspects. On that list was Ronnie Leon Hyde, a former youth pastor who was a friend of the family. According to Laster's sister, Hyde was the last person to see Fred alive, and he changed his story several times during the initial investigation into Fred's disappearance 23 years ago. With this information, police obtained the DNA sample from Hyde and matched it to DNA from the flannel shirt left at the crime scene. Also, taking into account that a car similar to Hyde's Chevy was seen leaving the gas station, the 60-year-old former pastor was arrested and is now awaiting trial. Carolyn Hecker. At first glance, 48-year-old Carolyn Hecker appeared to live an ideal life. She was a real estate agent in Smithville, Missouri. She had 2 daughters and lived in a nice upscale house in the suburbs. However, recent events showed that Hecker was hiding a very dark past, after forensic evidence placed her at the heart of 2 murder investigations. The first took place in 1989, when 18-year-old Sarah DeLeon was stabbed to death in Kansas City. DeLeon had started dating Hecker's ex-boyfriend. Detectives at the time were aware that Hecker, then known as Caroline Kuhn, had been harassing and threatening her love rival, but found no physical evidence to connect her to the murder. A few decades later, the rise of forensic science meant that the new DNA evidence pointed the finger at Hecker. Carolyn Hecker was arrested in late of 2016 for the 1989 murder. During the investigation, police realized that DNA evidence placed Hecker at the scene of yet another cold case from 1994. Diana Ault, 26, was gunned down in her home in front of her baby daughter and 4-year-old son. Police believe jealousy was again the motive, and Hecker is their main suspect, although she has not yet been formally charged. Karen Claus. In 1976, 32-year-old Karen Claus was assaulted in her Hermosa Beach home, which she once shared with her ex-husband, Righteous Brothers singer Bill Medley. She died of her injuries a few days later. Even though police had several viable suspects and Medley hired his own investigators to track down Claus's killer, the case went cold for over 40 years. Police had the foresight to collect a towel found next to the lady's body in the hopes that one day it would provide a new lead. As technology advanced, investigators were able to obtain a DNA sample from the towel. With a DNA profile, investigators looked for a match in their database in 1999 and again in 2011, but they came up empty. Detectives searched for a third time in 2016 and got a hit through familial DNA. A relative of the killer was in the system for a crime committed in late 2011. This new lead helped police identify Karen Klass's killer as Kenneth Eugene Troyer. He was gunned down by cops during a prison break in 1982. This was before police began regularly collecting DNA samples from convicted felons, which is why Troyer was not in the system. This marked the second time familiar DNA evidence helped close a case in Los Angeles County. The first was the identification of the notorious Grim Sleeper, Lonnie Franklin. So that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Until the next video, goodbye.